Welcome back to the program. Let's go live to our regular Monday panel. The member for Bennelong, Labor MP Jerome Laxale, and the member for Casey and Chief Opposition Whip Aaron Violi. Great to see you both. Jerome, what do you say to the critics that say that the government is not being ambitious enough, that you've got a majority, 94 seats, and should be pushing hard when it comes to reform this week?
Well, we haven't had the roundtable yet, Kieran. It's in a couple of days, and at the end of it, I'm sure the Treasurer and the Prime Minister and the government want to reach consensus on some reform, not just for this budget, but for budgets to come, maybe even for longer term than that. I think this whole exercise is a positive one. Of course, we'll have critics, and I'm sure Aaron will have a stab at me in a sec, but I'm excited to see what comes out of these really important 3 days in terms of budget repair, in terms of productivity reforms, in terms of reducing red tape, because productivity is really important. It means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Here in Macquarie Park, where there's a huge pharmaceutical and medical device industry, productivity for them means getting some of their products onto our systems quicker. I think it takes like 450 days or something for approval. So productivity in that sector would be speeding up that process, which I know is on the government's radar. But bring it on. A good 3 days, and I'm sure there'll be lots of talk about it in Parliament over the next fortnight as well.
Aaron Violi, your thoughts, and should we cut them some slack, as Jerome rightly points out? It hasn't been held yet, so we've got to see how it unfolds, see what the outcomes are.
It hasn't been held yet, but obviously those leaked Treasury documents show that potentially the decisions have already been made. Look, credit where credit's due. Jerome's got a tough job. He's had to try and sell this chaos that is the government's agenda. We started with it being a productivity roundtable. It was then tax reform, then it flipped back to productivity. It started with everything on the table, and then the Prime Minister ruled everything out, said there'd be no changes to tax until the next election. The only problem was the next day the Treasurer contradicted him by talking about an EV tax. So there's complete chaos on the government side. What is clear is the serious tension between the Prime Minister and the Treasurer, who has leadership ambitions, and that's what his focus is about. So we'll see if we get any outcomes, but there's been so much confusion from this government about the messaging of what they're trying to achieve. It's unlikely and unfortunate for the Australian people that we won't have any tangible outcomes, except maybe those talking points that were leaked by Treasury last week with a predetermined outcome. So we'll wait and see where it ends up, but it hasn't been a great start to this process for the government.
One of the issues the Prime Minister reiterated that they've got to have a look at in terms of sustainability, the NDIS, 1 in 6 6-year-old boys on that scheme at the moment, Aaron, and the Prime Minister, I think, knows the fact that Labor delivered this. They love as a major reform of Labor governments in recent decades, but it needs to be sustainable, Aaron.
Oh, correct, Kieran. It needs to be sustainable. All members of Parliament support the NDIS, and the Coalition supported and worked with the government last term on the changes that needed to be made. But we need to understand, and I saw the Prime Minister's clip, the changes we're talking about is only taking growth from 14% down to 8%. So it's going to continue to grow as a program, but also that's compounding growth on growth. So that 8% is actually a bigger number in real terms every year. It needs to make sure that at its heart, the system is protecting those that are most vulnerable. But it appears with some of these numbers that we've seen that there's questions that need to be asked, but those that are most vulnerable need to be protected. We also need to make sure, Kieran, that those on the system are getting the service and care that they deserve from the NDIS and the NDIA weekly, daily even. I have meetings and emails and concerns from people on the NDIS that the system's not working. So there's two parts that we need to continue to look at, that cost and to make sure it's sustainable, but also how we're treating people and making sure that participants are treated with dignity on the NDIS system.
Yes, your thoughts on that, Jerome? I know it's a popular scheme for many families and those with people on it, but it's also one that has questions about the sustainability, and that needs to be dealt with as well.
Absolutely, Kieran, and we haven't shied away from the fact that we need reforms and we need the NDIS to be sustainable. I think a big thing that we've done in this term of Parliament is bring that NDIS portfolio into health with Mark Butler and with the support of Assistant Minister Jenny McAllister. I guess that sends a signal that we mean business, but that we also see some synergy with the health portfolio and the NDIS. A lot of overlap there, and hopefully it'll be helped to identify some ways in which the scheme can be more efficient. I know there's also a lot of work to do with the states. An agreement signed, not that long ago, but there's still a lot of details that need to be worked out.
Jerome, it gets to that.
Yeah, that won't be easy.
It gets to that question, though. When you look at the numbers, 16% of 6-year-olds on the scheme, are they 16% of 6-year-old boys permanently disabled? It's hard to imagine that that's the case, Jerome.
Well, the NDIS at its core was set up to help people with a profound disability, and I think it's become a lot more than that. Bill Shorten said that when he was minister and got those bipartisan reforms through. I think he described it, he doesn't want it to be the only life raft in the ocean. So there will need to be some reform, and that will mean some tough decisions. That has started, but there's plenty more work to do, particularly with the states, and to see what services they can bring back under their responsibilities and what is left to the NDIS. But it's something we're really passionate about. It has bipartisan support, and it's going to need some tough decisions over the next, longer than 3 years, over the next few terms.
And Aaron, as Jerome rightly pointed out, it's for the most profoundly disabled, the scheme, and it's not. And with 16% of 6-year-old boys on it, you've also got to ask questions about the public ownership of it, in terms of people wanting to continue to support it, because those numbers do seem too much.
Well, they do anecdotally, Kieran, seem quite high, and there's been lots of reports around cost shifting in terms of the states dropping services that they've provided, and there is a real question, and we go back in time with when the NDIS was set up. Maybe the structures were wrong because there was a cap on state contributions, but there was an unlimited cap on federal contributions. And so there is a perverse incentive for state governments across the country to pull their services for the community and then push that onto the federal government. And that's one of the reasons we are seeing this growth. It was concerning because... So I just want to finish on this one point, Kieran.
Let's hope that is dealt with. Yeah, just quickly.
Yeah,
please.
No, very quickly. But there was the agreement made, money given by the federal government to state governments. State governments are walking away from those agreements. So Minister Butler needs to hold them to account. They've taken federal money. They need to meet their end of the bargain in these tough conversations.
Hopefully it comes up and discussed at length this week. Thank you, Aaron, Jerome. Thanks.